All sports have their defining moments, those snapshots in time that never get forgotten. But what about our relatively new and young sport of triathlon? Does it still have those standout pivotal moments? Well, yes, of course it does. And today I'm going to run through a list of races that I believe changed the shape of triathlon, explain my reasons why. Okay, so let's get started with what, as far as we know, is the first iteration of our sport of triathlon. It took place on Fiesta Island, San Diego, on a late September evening in 1974. It was the Mission Bay Triathlon, which was a run, bike, swim, run event hosted by the San Diego Track Club as an alternative to their normal track workouts. Now, this first iteration had some 46 members of the club taking part, and they had to complete a 6-mile run, which had some barefoot running on grass and sand, a 5-mile bike, and then a 500-yard swim. And needless to say, San Diego is quite often now recognised as the birthplace of triathlon, and the triathlon snowball started to roll pretty quickly from these humble beginnings. We're now moving on to this single-day endurance event that we now know as Ironman. It was the brainchild of Judy and John Collins, who moved from California to Hawaii in 1975 and just so happened to be amongst the pioneers of the Mission Bay Triathlon the year prior. Now, US Navy Commander John Collins decided to put an end to the debate as to who was the fittest, swimmers, cyclists, or runners, by combining Hawaii's 3 biggest endurance events: the 2.4-mile Waikiki rough water swim, the 115-mile around Oahu cycle race, and the Honolulu Marathon, creating the Hawaiian Ironman. And the first edition of this was in 1978 with just 15 competitors, 12 of which finished. But the first Ironman victor was Gordon Haller in a time of 11 hours, 46 minutes and 58 seconds, which, when you think about it, for those times, is really quite impressive. In 1982, however, the Ironman moved to the quieter Big Island of Kona, where it remains today, but now with around 2,500 athletes, and the very best athletes in the world, competing each year. How about the Avignon ITU World Champs? At this meeting, the Olympic distance was set as a 1.5 kilometre swim, 40 kilometre bike, and 10 kilometre run. Distances that many of us know today as the standard distance. And the reason that they were selected as this distance was simply because they existed already as individual events at the Olympic Games. Now, impressively, at this first ITU World Champs, we had 800 athletes taking part from 40 countries, but the winners were Mark Allen and Erin Baker, names that had already become synonymous in the sport of triathlon due to their successes on the Big Island in Hawaii. In fact, Mark Allen later that year went on to win his first Hawaii Ironman victory. Now, at this point, the sport was very much a non-drafting affair, but this first ITU World Champs paved the way for triathlon to make it into the Olympic Games just over a decade later. Talking of the Olympic Games, the first Olympic triathlon event was at the Sydney Olympic Games, taking place on the 16th of September 2000. By this point, Australia had almost become the adopted home of triathlon, and as such, the women's event opened up the entire Games. And what a venue we had. We had the backdrop of the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the transition area and finish line directly in front of the Sydney Opera House building. Now, as a nation, Australia were desperate to have a home champion in this opening event of the Games. Michaeli Jones, who was born and raised in Sydney, gave the crowd much to cheer about. She led deep into the race up until the final kilometres, where unfortunately she was pipped to the line by Switzerland's Bridget McMahon. In the men's race, it was a surprise victory from Canada's Simon Whitfield, with pre-race favourite Simon Lessing having to settle for 9th. Now, 16 years on from the inclusion of triathlon within the Olympic Games, triathlon was now included within the Rio Paralympic Games in 2016. Now, unfortunately, there's actually more classifications of impairments than medals available, so they will be rotating those classifications for each Olympic Games. Now, the emergence of the half iron distance wasn't far behind its big brother over on Hawaii. We had the Super Frog Triathlon from San Diego, dating back to around 1979. We also had another Californian classic, the Wildflower Triathlon. Now, at the time, this was regarded as almost the unofficial world championships of that distance. But then in 2005, Ironman created its own designated series for this distance, as well as a world championships. It was the Ironman 70.3 distance, the 70.3 referring to the combined mileage for the three disciplines. Now, a bit of fun trivia for you. The very first of these events was Ironman 70.3 UK, which actually took place just a stone's throw from the GTN HQ in the southwest of England here. That then would qualify you for the World Championships in 2006, which would take place in Clearwater, which was also just a stone's throw from the Ironman HQ over in America. Now, the winners of this very first World Championships was the Australian Craig Alexander and Canadian Sarah McAlone. From there, we had a ton of other Ironman 70.3 events popping up, and today we have over 100 Ironman 70.3 events around the globe, as well as countless other non-Ironman branded events of the same distance. Now, to this point, triathlon never really had a big money event similar to that of the Masters or the US Open in golf or tennis. But then the CEO of the Hy-Vee grocery chain stumped up a whopping $1 million prize purse to attract the very best athletes in the world to the streets of the Iowa state capital of Des Moines. It lured the very best draft legal athletes in the world to compete for a whopping $200,000 prize purse plus a Hummer vehicle. It was a prize purse like no other that we'd never seen in triathlon before. In this inaugural event in 2007, it was Denmark's Rasmus Henning and Laura Bennett of the US that took the win. And impressively, Rasmus Henning managed to back that up the following year too. We also had victories along the way from the likes of Olympic champions Emma Snowsill, Simon Whitfield, multiple world champion Tim Don. Unfortunately, the Hy-Vee money tree didn't last forever though. After 6 or 7 years, eventually the event faded out. But it did provide a lot of money along the way and certainly changed some athletes' lives. Now then, who can forget the images of perhaps one of the most dramatic finishes of all time within triathlon, when both the Brownlee brothers collapsed across the finish line in the heat of Cozumel, Mexico. It was the grand final for the ITU World Triathlon Series, in which Johnny Brownlee was set to take the win for the World Championships. All he had to do was win this final race. Now, Alistair Brownlee had already by this point defended his Olympic title just a month or so prior, so he was set on helping his younger brother to try and take this win. All he had to do was pull ahead in those final kilometers and seal the victory in this race and take that World Championship win. And it all seemed to be going to plan, although unfortunately it seemed like Johnny maybe dug himself a bit of a hole, and in those closing stages as he rounded the final corners, agonizingly close, he lost control of his limbs. Fortunately, Alistair was just behind to catch him and almost drag him across the line. But before they got there, unfortunately, Henry Schumann beat them to the line to take the win of the race, and then Johnny and Alistair crossing the line in second and third. That meant that Mario Mola took that World Championship victory. However, in the process, these images of them crossing the line together and Alistair helping him, they went viral far beyond the reach of triathlon and gaining a lot of exposure for our sport. After that, the ITU put a new rule into the rulebook stating that no other athlete could help in the forward progression of another athlete on any part of the course. So had that rule been in place before Cozumel, both the brothers would have been disqualified. And to finish, let's discuss a couple of different and alternative events, both of which actually originated from Scandinavia in the early 2000s, with the founders striving to create unique and different multi-sport experiences. And in fact, Both of these events have grown into a very popular worldwide series and events in their own right. So first off, we've got the Norseman, which was founded and started in 2003, which holds some similarities obviously to Ironman with the distances, but that's pretty much where the similarities end, because the swim starts off the back of a ferry, jumping into a deep and very cold fjord, and then over a very mountainous bike leg from point to point, which I can vouch for, and then the run, which is a marathon finishing atop of southern Norway's highest mountain peak, Gustertoppen. And also uniquely, the event also requires you, because it is so extreme, to have a support crew. So rather than racing solo, you'll actually have people following you along, so you're actually able to share the experience with others. And this event has also now grown into a World Series, the X-Tri Tour, with numerous events of a similar vein all over the world. And then we have swim run, which simply put is the combination of swimming and running, no set number of times, over what is generally a point-to-point course. And like many good things, this came about after a beer in a pub and a challenge between a couple of mates. And that was it. Otalo was born. Otalo standing for Island to Island in Swedish. Now, this challenge was a course across 24 islands in the Stockholm archipelago. That course has now become the Otalo World Championships. It's around 75 kilometers in total. A total of about 10 kilometers swimming and 65 kilometers running. And you do this totally self-supported as a pair. Now, as a pair, you may bungee and attach yourself to one another so you can pull each other along, but it does mean that you are basically running in your wetsuit and swimming in your run shoes if you want. You can take them off, but you will need to carry it all with you. Now, I've got to say, it really is one of the most grueling endurance events out there. Fraser and myself can vouch for this because we've both taken part in the Otalo World Championships. It's an amazing event, but it is really quite tough. It's now grown into a worldwide series with varying distances, so anyone can get stuck in. I really do recommend you do, because it's absolutely amazing. Well, there we go. There's races that have changed triathlon. Do let us know if you have been on the sidelines or watched any of these events, whether you've done them before, or whether you think we've missed any obvious events off the list. Drop them in the comments section down below. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If so, please do give it a like. Don't forget to give GTN a follow over on social media and give us a follow just down below.